before you ask a question, let me say something that I wish I had known. I was actually on the head for 18 years. I was at my school before you. And everybody's headship is different, and it's different to follow a legend. I followed a legend, but I was an internal person following a legend, so that made it a little easier. Even though I knew Summit from A to Z, what I didn't know was that it would take 3 years for me to really feel like it was me. And that would be my advice. You know, give it 3 years. And don't think you have to change the world in the first 2. And by the 3rd year, you'll wake up one morning and you'll think, I really am head of the school. This really is my school. And then you'll say, well, no, it's never my school. It never was. It never will be. But it feels like I belong in that chair. My first day in that front office, I kept my predecessor's chair, literally. It was a huge rolling chair. You remember when you had this huge roll top desk? And I'm sitting in this massive chair that I never should have sat upon. And somebody comes to the door, and I have a bad habit of sitting with one leg under me like this. So somebody came to the door, and I started to get up, and I caught my heel in the hem of my dress and fell flat on my floor. My first day. The next day, we got rid of that chair. I got this cute little chair that fit me, and that was my first way to say, okay, it's going to be different. I don't have to use this man who I admire from A to Z. I don't have to use this chair. So give it 3 years. What about you, Bob? What do you wish you'd known?
Couple of things. One thing was, I shouldn't have brought my expertise or whatever expertise I had in the job I had before into the new job. Because I lost my bookkeeper the first time I talked to her. I asked her if she followed the NAIS kind of guidelines for how to keep books, and she closed the book and walked out the door. That was the end of that. She didn't want any kind of input. So that was the first lesson. The second one was a shock, and I'll pass it on for what it's worth. It's the first time I walked into a room, and there were 2 people, both kind of administrative people, and they were imitating me and laughing. And I figured at my other job I would have been one of them. Not anymore. The target.
Well, something Sandra said, patience in what you do. I'm a slow learner. I was at St. Paul's Episcopal School in Mobile for 34 years of my career. I started when I was 22 and left when I was 57. And I was never head of school, but my first administrative job was middle school division head. And I was the first middle school division head. And that was fun because all of my faculty were old enough to be my mother, and they treated me like I was their son. I did that for 16 years and then moved, I guess you moved up or down, depending on became the upper school division head. And well, I presumed that if I was really good at middle school, I was going to be really good at upper school. I made it 12 months before a group of the faculty called for a meeting with the chairman of the board about the way I was moving and treating the upper school. I continued the rest of my career there as principal of the school for many years thereafter. But that was sort of the first rebellion that I had. So I go to Jackson Academy and met Marvin Lishman, not knowing much about Mississippi. And there as a head of school, and I made it to May before there was a faculty uprising there. Again, I hadn't quite figured that exactly what you said. I knew where we were, I knew where we needed to go. I couldn't, the timing was just not right. I figured, 12 months, 13 months we'd be exactly where we were. It's a 3 or 4 year journey there, and it just takes patience. Even with the vision, it takes a lot of patience.
Well, as an ex-coach or basketball coach, I never would have wanted to have much patience. And so when I came to Magnolia Heights when I was 12, and
Yeah.
I was the right age of 26. I was accused of changing everything but the school name and the school colors. Instead, I changed the school color 2 years later. So, the thing that I would say is, and I could not have done it being as young as I was, without a huge amount of political capital. And although I value what you said about waiting and getting the lay of the land, you got a lot of political capital to spend in that first year. And if you don't spend it then, you may not ever get to spend it. So I think it's uniquely individual to whoever you are, and you've got to be your own person and not try to be someone else. I had great mentors. And the thing that I would leave with you today, if you don't take anything else away from this today, take this away. Look around the room. Every one of us and you are part of the network of heads of schools. And it's not an exclusive club, but it is lonely at the time, but you can pick up the phone and call anytime. And I can remember calling Oliver Sidney, Peter Jernberg. I mean, I had them on, I don't know if you had speed dial back then, but I could punch the button and I would be on the phone to them, because how do you solve this? What do you do here? Especially as it related to school finances and those types of things. I came as a middle school principal from Washington School, so I didn't have to deal with all that stuff. I dealt with the 3 B's at Washington School. You might know what the 3 B's are. Butts, books, and buses. So that was my job there, and so it was vastly different when I got to Magnolia Heights.
We really want to focus on what you want to know. So let's throw it open.
What's the best decision you ever made?
The best decision would have to do with having 2 associate heads. We just had one. And I could make another person an associate head, so we had divided labor, and we were then we became a triad. And I got to do all the things I wanted to do, and they got to do the other stuff. But it happened to really work because of those 2 people. So I think it was a little unusual maybe to have 2 associate heads. We were a school of 600 and some. But I think it saved a lot of areas that where I don't think I had the strengths they had.
I'm going to go down a little bit of a strange path. The best is 2 decisions I made were to take somebody out of a job that they love. The first one was a person who was running the high school, and it wasn't working out. And I called him in and told him it wasn't working out. And I said, you know, we got to let you go back to class. He said, let me think about it. He came back in a couple of days and he called me boss. He said, boss, we need a computer program. I said, what is that? He said, you need to order some computers and I can run a computer program. I said, I don't know what a computer is. What are you talking about? We ordered, I think it was 6 TRS 80s, which I had no money to pay for. He said, don't worry about it, boss. You're a pretty good fundraiser. You'll get the money before they get here. And we did. And he became head of a computer program that at Heathwood is huge. I guess they've got 300 computers on the campus. And Bill has 4 people working with him. But it was the best thing I ever did was take him out of that job. And his response to it was incredible, to say, I want to do that. Second one was just like it. Athletic director, basketball coach. I love basketball. We were playing at a pretty good level, but he was not playing his team right. Everybody knew. Actually, he was not playing his African-American kids the way he should have been. He was leery about what the parents thought. It's a long time ago. So I said, you know, I don't want you to be the basketball coach anymore. You can be the athletic director. He said, oh my goodness. He said, can I get back to you at the end of the week? This was on Monday. Oh, well, don't do that. And on Thursday, he came in with a proposal for an outdoor education program. He said, I don't want to be the athletic director anymore. I want to run the outdoor education program. I want to learn what that is. I want to put it together. And it is today a beautiful program called Peak Outdoors. And people all over come to visit it. And he is happy as can be. He's been there for now many, many years. And that was a good call to fire him. I don't know if it makes any sense to you or not, but that was good. Others have not been so good. I used to have a one more tradition of when somebody left, we gave them a silver bowl with their name on it. I got one thrown at me. Hit me right here. We quit the silver bowl.
I don't know what the best decision I've ever made, but if I look in my career, the one I'm the most proud of, and this is, sort of ties these parts together. I had to, let me explain the whole thing because it ties back. I work with some colleagues that 3 of them now are heads of 3 different schools, and 2 of them are associate heads, including the ones sitting over here, of 2 other schools. So I've got 5 younger folks that have worked with me, and somewhere along the way, I figured out I couldn't do this by myself. Although when I first started, I absolutely thought I could. But the idea of developing other leaders in the school business. At that same time, and you heard Bob Shirley refer to it, I visited Bob Shirley's school at Peacewood back in the 80s, looking at a special program that he had at his school, and that's where I first met him. And then Rufus Bethea, who was referred to. I worked with Mr. Bethea for 16 years, with Webb Rayner for 9 years. And then I was 57 when I went to Mississippi. I figured by the time I got to Mississippi, I knew all I would ever need to know the rest of my life there. And the first person that I called outside of the school was Marvin Lishman, because I'd seen him do the program, and I got to know Marvin Lishman. And I worked for a man by the name of Peter Jernberg. And there was a significant number of other leaders in both states that I mentored from until the day I left there. And now what I'm doing is I'm calling particularly these younger guys like Matt and that I work directly with. I'm asking their advice. And so last night, in an effort to do some research, since we didn't find out we were going to do this till yesterday, I sat down with a few of my colleagues, my St. Paul's colleagues, 2 of them who are now heads of schools, and I said, what are the top 10 things to advise? And one of them said, multiply yourself. And that would be my advice, is multiply yourself. None of us can do it all. And these jobs get more complicated every day. So I guess my best decision was I was multiplying myself, not realizing what I was doing, and then and I was actually mentoring, and then I I was learning from other mentors that I had the opportunity to work with. And that is tremendous asset, tremendous asset.
I think this may sound a little trite, but I think one of the best decisions I made was to join SAIS back in 1983. And I had the opportunity as a young head of school to meet people like Tom Redmond, and Ned Fox, and Bob Shirley, and Pat Taylor, and all these people who I looked up to. It's just, I can remember my first Cracker Barrel session, and we said, people around that, we really used a Cracker Barrel session and just talking about different ideas. And I think Ned was there, and maybe Rob Evans, I can't remember all that were there. But just, so my best decision was expanding the network, which is kind of what they're talking about. It's something that has really benefited me over the years. I like to categorize, I like to think of myself as a lifelong learner. And I want to learn as much as I can for as long as I can. And these people they gave of themselves and just helped me in that capacity in so many ways. And I'll be forever grateful for that. And Magnolia Heights would not be the school it is today without me stealing all the ideas and everything else. I've been on dozens of accreditation teams and over the years, and it never fails that I bring back more to my school than I take. So my other encouragement, or what I would like you to do, is when they ask you to serve on an accreditation team, do it. It's the best professional development you will ever do.
I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the things to know is that when you call someone else, particularly if you're putting that person in the role of mentor, it's affirming to that person. When we get on into our career and we think somebody really wants to know what we have to say, that's a very affirming thing. So don't think of it as selfish. Think of it as you're giving a tribute to that person in some way by asking advice. Don't hesitate.
Don't hesitate to pick up the phone. I was coming back from a restaurant last night, and one of my students that's now head of school, I teach some leadership classes for a local university, and called me on the phone, had a problem, and so I was trying to help him through that particular problem last night. So it's just, it's there. And it's ours to give to you, and we learn from you, and you learn from us, and the rising tide lifts all boats.
I agree with you that it takes time in terms of bringing hearts and minds, because that's what leads to sustained change. But many schools, both independent and public, are under a lot of pressure. Sometimes you don't have the luxury of time, and children get one shot. So what advice would you have for any school that's in a situation where they need to make rapid but secure positive change, and they maybe don't have the 3 year period, they may have the 18
It's
months?
a really good contract. With explicit severance language.
That's true. It's such a good point. It's easy to say, oh, take 3 years. But if enrollment's down and they're bringing you in to turn the school around magically, you don't have that long. But you do have time to figure out the people you really want to whom you really want to give an ear, to really listen to. And you can't figure that out immediately, because the person who comes into your office and you think they're going to be the best voice may not be. It may be the person who's waiting to be approached. But you've got to have those, if you're getting ready to make a big change, you can't do it by yourself. You've got to figure out where the people are, and that is that Kirk Walker listening thing. You've just got to listen, and then try to be able to make the changes that aren't earth-shaking first. You know, change the cuisine in the dining room or something. Oh, no, don't do that. That's where we had our biggest, one parent said, the only problem I have at Summit is the onions and the marinara sauce are just too big. So that's your problem. very grateful. And they were too big on purpose so the children could pull them out if they didn't like onions. But pick something that maybe shows change, positive change, but doesn't change the philosophy.
And I understand exactly what you're saying, but I think regardless, and particularly in today's world, you don't take the time to gather the brains and the gifts around you, but develop a strategic thought, a strategic plan. I think too often, and I've seen it in our population of heads, where new heads go in and they start making a lot of changes because they know they need, that they're short-term in the process. So actually nothing really gets accomplished in there because it hadn't been thought out and vetted very well in getting it done. Because the end results is, there's a process for the end results. Can you get it done? Make sure you carry some folks with you as you're getting it done.
I was really lucky in that during my first year, a member of the search committee who not said much in the search process came to me and said, and he was head of a big company in Columbia. He said, Bob, don't talk about the job you do. Let me do that. I'm going to be with you and help you out. But you need to run the school and do that, and I will work in the community and help you out. And that's my advice, is to find a hero and listen to the hero and ride the hero. Because if you start talking about all these ideas I have, people begin to, gosh, you're going to change everything. I'm threatened by that. I like the way Henry did it when he was here, and give somebody new. But if you got a trustee or somebody with some power in the community talking your game for you, it's a different thing.
The minute you can start giving credit to other people, you're in good shape. The more teachers will appreciate it if they think you're not going to take credit for things they're doing. After all, you know, the school was here, the teachers. And you usually don't have to look hard, even in a new school, to find the people that you can really give credit to for very specific, particular things happening. I think when you do that, people realize you're not vainglorious and you are willing to share the leadership. So look for those people.
Our school, I'm doing an interim this year, and since I'm Episcopal in Lafayette, and I sat with the search committee. I also work with Southern teachers. Jamie Estes is here, and I represent Southern teachers at the search committee interviews. Since I've been there, and at the end of it sort of ties back to time keeping. At the end of a couple of we've been through several of our semi-finalists, and everybody had left except a few board members, and one of the board members said, you know, I don't get it, business guy. I said, yeah. He said, I don't get it. He said, every time we ask some of these heads an answer, they tell us a story. They don't give us an answer. And he said, how does that work out? I don't get it. I just want an answer. And I said, well, you know, there's sort of a joke, old heads tell stories. But I said, ultimately, we're all teachers. And so we teach those we work with by telling stories. And he said, so that's the way you build a staff. And I said, you build a staff that way, and you tell the stories. And your staff gets confidence in coming to you where you really never give an answer. You give life examples. And I said, now you know when you really got a staff. It's this young man over here that I was fixing to refer to. He frequently would call me when we were working together, and usually about 6:30, 7 o'clock on his way home or my way home, and he always started with the same statement: I need some gray hair, which meant he's asking some advice, and he's going to give me a problem, and I tell him a story. But I said, you know, you really arrived when he would show up in my office periodically and come in and say, "Can I see you a second?" I said, "Sure." He closed the door. He said, "I need to ask you a question. I need an answer. And don't tell me a damn story." I said, "Now, ultimately, that's where you have worked your staff exactly the way it should be, honesty and straightforward and where things operate."
I'm reminded though about the story, about us telling stories. Know your story, and know your school's story, and be able to tell it. 1 Peter 3:15 gives us, from the Bible says, always be prepared to give an account for the reason that you believe. And I think at our schools and everything, we've got to communicate that story, and then our people have got to reflect that story. And so always, Tim Gerber used to say he always had a speech in his pocket, about a 3-minute speech in his pocket. But I've always thought that, I'm the best storyteller for my school that there is. So always be prepared to tell that story, and surround yourself with people who can communicate that as well.
I have a question about the evolving role of heads. We hear that a lot, but thinking back to that first couple of years on the job, what your day looked like, where you prioritized your time, the big problems and things that kept you up at night. How's that different from the last 2 or 3 years in your roles as heads, and what you've had over the last 2 or 3 years? What's the big difference?
Still keeps you up at night.
What?
But the things that you worry about, are they the same?
I mean, a lot of them are the same, but when you're in charge of 700 kids, there's 700 different families, there's 700 different stories, and I guess maybe I'm just getting older or whatever, but I worry. I worry. I know the Bible tells you not to worry, but I do. We've been through grief, and we've been through the death of students, and the death of faculty members, and that kind of thing. It's almost like sometimes you're waiting for the shoe to drop. So, but you just got to pray. God put you here for a purpose, and His timing is perfect, and you're supposed to be the person for that particular time. But it does, I don't know that the worrying never stops. And I've got great people surrounding me. I would also echo what y'all said, surround yourself with great people and divide the labor. And I've done that because we've gone from a 320 to 25 student school in 1981 to 700 today. So obviously back then I was the elementary principal, I was a high school principal, I was a bus driver, I was a custodian, I was the maintenance guy, I was whatever it is. I was telling Matt, or somebody at lunch today, we were talking about these STEM programs that we're getting in all our schools now to teach them critical thinking skills and problem solving and all that kind of thing. I think a headmaster is pretty good. If you're running the whole shebang, you got problems to solve, you got to do critical thinking, you got everything that there is right there around. Maybe the best STEM experiment that there is.
I think I understand your question. I think that the world has changed drastically with boards. And I think boards probably need a lot of training to understand the role of governance. And heads need to learn that there is such a thing as governance. And there is a boss, and the boss is the board. The head is maybe thinking they're the boss, and to a degree they are. And they have a definite role, but if you look at the NAIS book on boards, you've got a clear delineation of who does what. But each person must do, each entity must do what they're supposed to do to have an effective running school. And that's tricky.
And I do think that is very different from when I first started. Boards are much more involved. My first board chair, I saw 15 minutes before the quarterly board meeting. That was it. Never talked to them on the phone. It was pretty wonderful. I say that was pretty wonderful, but toward the middle and end of my career, I really appreciated those board chairs who were much more involved with me and with the running of the board. I think boards and parents today expect immediate response. You know, back before we had the capability of responding just like that, they'd give us a day or two to think over something. And now it's, if you don't get back to them at the end of the day, then, you know, something's wrong. So I see that as a difference. I think about, I'm talking fast because I have to leave it, so I don't say everything. I think about the difference in technology. It's, oh my gosh, the impact on the schools with technology. But we thought that was true when I started out in 1967 as a teacher. We had a technological revolution. It was going to change teaching. And it was the overhead projector. And, you know, they put an overhead projector in everybody's room. And you would think we had changed the world for teachers. Some of them, they didn't want that machine. They didn't want to have to face the class the whole time. But what it did was we didn't have to have a blackboard behind us. We were looking at students. And yet, as simple as that seems now, for those people coming into technology and accepting it was just as difficult as it is for some of our teachers now who seem threatened by it. I'm going to leave you in the hands of these outstanding heads, so don't forget your papers here. Thank you so much.
That goes back to a gentleman named Marvin that he actually was my first head of school. And he said, you know, the big problems will take care of themselves. They're going to get answered. It's the little problems you don't take care of that will get you into trouble. And the big change, man, and what I've seen over the years, the little problems we addressed pretty rapidly there, which gave us more time to be with students or to be with faculty or curriculum, etc. The little problems now have become so serious in your address until I find myself laboring over sometimes what might seem simple, but because of social media, because of legal. I told you about a situation. We had a phone call from division head, one of my division heads, the upper school division head, last week, and he told me about a situation. He said, "What do I do?" And I said, "Well, if this were 20 years ago, you'd bring the student in, you would have a very serious conversation with this young man, and you would have called his mother. And it wouldn't happen again, I'm sure." He said, "And what do I do? Social media." I said, "Well, you need to call the sheriff to find out the legal implications of the law, if there's legal implications. You need to call the rector of an Episcopal school. I'll call the chairman of the board, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do from there." Now, we got to the same answer for the young man that we would have started with, which was literally a reprimand. But that whole process probably caused 4 hours of conversation and work, and there was disciplinary action. But I think 20 years ago, 15 years ago, it would have been a conversation, knowing the young man, knowing the family, that we could have taken care of business. But we had to do all the protections around the institution and the community to make sure that we've got our eyes across these. That's the one that keeps me up, is simply trying for protection. Other questions?
I wonder if we could return for a second to the question of political capital that Marvin raised earlier, because to me it's like an evolving bank account. You know, I think that you have political capital certainly when you start that you can spend while the honeymoon is on. But if you don't store some up and build some up, and when you have that crisis and you need the board chair to have your back, you need to have built that political capital up. And I wonder if you could just speak to that sort of revolving bank account of political capital.
You need to see some fruits of your labor. You know, I can remember people coming to my office and saying that too much change, too fast, blah, blah, blah. And I would say something like, yeah, medicine is not going to taste good, or something like that. Keep in mind, I went there, I signed my contract to go there for 3 years. Here I am 38 years later, so I don't know, but I know you got to build political capital. I do know that. And I know you build that with relationships. You build that in showing the people and the kids that you care about the school. And that means you're going to be at a lot of events early on in your career. You're going to be, and your family's going to sacrifice, which is not good. Part of my advice today is, part of my 10 things was protect your family time. And something that I did not know back then. So, I don't know if that answers the question, but I think you've got to build that political capital, because you're going to spend a lot, or at least I spent a lot my first 3 years.
This goes back to your question, which is something I learned in many years how change is there's obviously, change makes us all a little uncomfortable. And yet, if schools aren't changing, they are dying, in my opinion. They're either going up or down, and very seldom you see schools exist that are just flat. They just don't do it, particularly in today's world. But what I found I found it interesting, the resistance of change. You've got to figure out where the resistance is. In St. Paul School, which we were a pretty competitive market, we found our place as being a very progressive school. We did a very early technology initiative. Just about the history of the school is built on trying different schedules and so on and so forth. And that was our competitive edge. And it was part of our culture. I moved to Jackson Academy. That was not the culture of Jackson Academy. It was stable, secure, and very traditional. But if you listen to what I said, there was a lot of, I moved too quick, because the resistance of change was internal. The resistance of change where the school needed to go in the community was a problem. It was interesting. Our parents were so excited about what we were doing, the faculty and the staff. And trying to figure out where that resistance is, and that goes back to that political capital question is, where do you need it? I needed faculty on board, and I need leadership on board. I lost them. Just to be honest with you, I lost them in the first year, so I had to sort of regain that momentum because I moved too quick. The parents, they loved it. So it was ill-used political capital because I needed the team internally to go with me. It just didn't make sense to me. Everybody didn't go. But that's not how institutions and people work.
I'm going to ask Jamie a question. How many times in a search does a board say, we really want innovative, well-developed, well-educated educator to run the school?
I would say that the teachers on the search committee say that a lot. The board tends to evolve in that feeling over time. The new boards that we work with want money, somebody who can raise money, somebody who can manage the budget, somebody that can oversee the curriculum. They want all of those things. But the idea of an educator, I think, comes more from the up above from the school than down from the board.
Kind of linked. So when you take positions in the school, my experience as a head of school in education in the UK, you're looking for what to hold on to and where to innovate. So it's that kind of restoration or protecting the treasures. Every school, no matter what situation you find it in, has treasures, has things that go spend, and then to decide where to innovate. In your time, your considerable experience and time as heads, how have you gone about the process of identifying treasure within the schools that you've gone into in order that that is protected and built on as the school innovates and moves forward?
That's a great question. How do you come into a new situation where people have been working hard to run a school, to be a school? And you come in with some thoughts and ideas about what a school ought to be. And you look at the one you got there, and it isn't quite what they think it is. And you want to change it to make it more effective for the world the kids are going to enter. Because the world the kids are going to enter is not the world that all the board members just left. It's not there. So you've got a real problem in juggling that. And it takes a lot of paying attention to what's going on in the world. There are a lot of innovations going on right now that are probably very interesting and very frightening. I've been really concerned with how you balance these things. And how does the board balance them, and how does the head survive? We've got more head changes right now than we've ever had in the independent school world. Someone told me there are 140 searches going on right now in the country for heads. What is the tenure of a head today? You know?
SAS is 5 years.
5 years. When my boss stayed 30-something years, I've been there 22 years. How do you stay that long?
Why do you stay that long? Yeah, I mean, that was my question.
How do you stay that long?
It's interesting that all the SAS people, I mean, what sort of marks the people that have been honored by SAS so far is that 22 years is the minimum. So why do you all stay at your school as long as you have?
You know, Jamie, I'd like to tell you that we are like absolutely three of the leading educators in the South. I'd love to tell you that, but one of the criteria for this award is the tenure of your school. So they just tweaked that, because if they did, I don't think they could ever get it in the next few years.
We're giving you more. I'm a follower of a guy named Ted SAIS, very prominent educator from the Northeast. He ran a program out of Brown University. And he made two comments I just never forget. One is, no two truly good schools are ever alike. And the second one is, a really fantastic school is never the same from one year to the next, which puts me on an extreme. But that's what I believe. I believe you remake the school every year. And I think you don't do it with the silly fashion of the latest trend and that kind of thing. But you've got to remember that the world those kids are entering is a different world than the one you left. Kids are not going to have jobs. I'm experiencing that in my own family. And it's a kind of strange time. So you've got to listen to what's going on, and you've got to keep yourself well read, and you've got to be the person who brings that to the school. And one more thing, if they don't like it, move. You know, don't let the board freeze you into being subservient to people who don't know about education. That's a sermon, I apologize.
38 years is a long time in one spot. And I hope I get a few more years before I retire. I think for me, in my tenure, it's been the relationship with my board chairs. I haven't had that many board chairs. I'm on my fourth in 38 years. So I think in NAIS would tell you that your tenure as the head of school and the tenure of your board and your board chairs to get and keep the institutional memory of why you're doing what you're doing is critical. And I would not have lasted 3 years had I not develop those relationships. And my board chairs have stay out of business. They don't want to run school. They're completely, and they have been also strong men who really served as a committee on trustees by themselves, because we've had some road trustees over the years. And those men went to those road trustees and said, this is the way it's going to be. And if you want to remain on this board or want to remain at this school, we believe in what the school is doing, the proof is in the pudding, and we're going to stay the course. And that's not where you need to be, then we need to free up your future for board meetings.
I think you got to be aware of what I heard yesterday, a new term, the car line cartel. You've got to be aware that that really exists. And that those people, if you have a lower school, you have kindergarten, first grade, people have brought their babies to your school, you better know what the car line cartel is talking about. Because it can be very damaging to you. When they start petitions, all kinds of things, the pressure to get you to do things that they want you to do. How do you deal with that? What do you think, Cobb?
Delegate.
Cobb is my mentor when I went to North Carolina.
That's right.
And he signed as my mentor, and he did a good job.
So proud of how far you
What do you do about the attitude of early parents?
I think our approach is try not, you're not going to stop them. There's no way, people who do that are going to do that. They do it at home, they do it at church. This is how they pass the time. We try to drown them out. So I try to engage and encourage positive parents in a kind of organized way, so that the good news in the community just drowns out the handful of people who are negative for pretty much everything. So
That's the millennial parent that you're dealing with, that we're dealing with right now. It's kind of like the powdered butt syndrome in my school. Some of them are trustees and alumni now. And, I remember them when they were second, third graders, and they don't really like that all so.
And I think about some advice that John Williford gave me a long time ago that has served me well. Don't ever call a town meeting when there's a topic like that in the carpet line. Deal with it in small groups, little pieces at a time. The town meeting is going to go south no matter how well you try to do it.
I always call out the unnamed co-complainers. Lots of people are upset about this comment. I'm like, well, I'm more than happy to meet with them in the same way I meet with you. Please encourage them to come see me. There's some different tools, but I just don't. I think it's endemic. I'm worried that you can attack it, you can counteract it, you can't get rid of it.
I feel sure you're going to read about me. I've been canned by the millennials at my school.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've got friends that have been in the school business, and I told some the other day that they should be erecting a building for this guy, and instead they were kicking him to the curb. That's to me, that's just the world that we live in.
I think this certainly goes right along with what you said. I don't think you can stop it. And this was not my wisdom. The first head of school gave me my first administrator position. It was a man by the name of Marvin. Well, it was from St. Andrews Episcopal in Delaware, Wilmington here. And I was young. I never intended to be a teacher anyway. I didn't know how long it was going to last under Mr. Winter. But he became middle school director, not because I was any good, but I was cheap there, and we didn't have much money. But he coached us a lot. I learned a lot from him. But one of the things that he said to us, this goes back to the 1970s. It's old information, but I think it's still good. There was only about 4 or 5 of us. We didn't have development. We didn't have a lot of these marketing and a business manager, a few division directors, him, and that was sort of it. And we were about 900 in the school at that time and growing. And he said, he's called us in one afternoon. And he said, we all have bad days. everybody has a bad day. He said, you know, you wake up in the morning and you don't feel well. You wake up in the morning and you've got a conflict with your spouse or you're worried about your children. It's going to be a bad day. He said, when you come to this school every day, you will have a good day. And if you don't feel like you're going to have a good day, fake it. That was his advice. And he said, if you can't fake it, then you go home. I don't want you. Because he said the whole tenor of the attitude in the school is set by the leadership team. And that one has set on me all that length of time because it's true. Because we were operating off of his energy. We were all young, all cheap, there, administrators, and all learning. But we operated every day off of his excitement. And I still think that counteracts a lot of, when that complaining parent walks in and everybody else smiles and you sit down with the parent and you say, how are you doing today? And they start and you tell them 4 things that's great about the school or their child in particular, you set a whole different attitude very quickly. The problem with that is not those that come in. The problem I have is those in the car line that just tell everybody. I do think attitude makes a world of difference for leadership. And in today's world, that stress level is extreme.
And you've got to model that leadership as well. You've got to lead from the front. Again, one of my favorite sayings is, you cannot lead where you will not go. You've got to be willing to get in there, do the dirty work, do the things that it takes and lead from the front. And your people under you will respect you for that. And the people that I know that I respect were those kinds of people as well.
Just on that note, in terms of detractors, the cartel, teachers probably more so than administrators also face those detractors in their parents. Do you think there's any power in an administration modeling in a Christian school or in any school the idea of modeling enemies, the idea of bringing those detractors, making to bring those detractors in? You know who they are. It doesn't matter what they can notice or not. You know who the cartel is, and you can reach out on them by basis. And that's a model for parents, for teachers, who sometimes struggle with those difficult conversations with parents. It's that kind of courage to say, can you talk to me? Because again, in my experience, very rarely does a detractor not have at least one little point in all the weaknesses. Is there a place for that? Or is it just a kind of...
In the old saying, keep your enemies close,
yeah,
keep your friends close, and keep your enemies close.
Sure, yeah.
Know your enemy. Know where they are, and do your best to bring them to your side. Sometimes they'll find out that you're not going anywhere; they'll go somewhere. So maybe that's, I don't know if that's what you're looking for or what, but I will certainly say.
I have a question. Just one other quick question, and maybe this is just unique to where I've been, but the paradigm has changed with parents that I've seen over my tenure, particularly in mid-sized cities that I worked in. For 34 years that I was, 30 years, and so towards the end of St. Paul's, we had a complaining parent, and we couldn't get rid of it. I mean, they'd complain, but they'd re-enroll every year, and at St. Paul's, we just used to swap them around and said, okay, you got an issue. Because literally, you knew they were going to do it, so you just gave them someone to go to there. But they would not leave us, and more than once I've said, I realize we're not meeting your expectation. Maybe another school would be best for you. And the response was, you want me out of here. That's you want me to leave. And I said, no, I want you to be happy. Never left. Starting somewhere in the 2000s, I saw that paradigm shift, where if the parent wasn't happy, they didn't give you a chance. They came in and threatened, and frequently would. They'd leave your school. The loyalty part has changed for so many parents. And that's, in my opinion, has handicapped us because of our concern about enrollment issues, of actually working with their children in a confident way that these instruction will be good and helpful for children, because they're worried about, truthfully, I think I worry frequently more about the parent than I do the child. And that very shifted. But it was just a joke. We couldn't get rid of the complaining parents, even though our fault because they tried to kick them out, but they never would leave. It's totally.
Don't take that way.
Never.
I have a question. I'm not a head of school, but it sounds like there are a lot of head of schools in here, and some have been here for a long time. But I'm a division head, and for years taught and loved teaching, and just I was surrounded by people who were kind of mentors who said, you need to be a division head. And so for the last 3 or 4 years, I've been doing that and really enjoy it. And my question is for you guys who've kind of like done various jobs, or anybody in the room, what was that one thing that says, okay, now I'm gonna be the head of the school? I want to make that decision, because coming with that decision comes a lot of, I'm sure, great things that are exciting and things that are not as exciting. So my question is, maybe anybody in the room, is what was the thing that said, yes, I'm going to do this? And 2, what has been the number one thing for you guys that after doing that, I am so glad I did it, and here's what I love the most about being the head of school.
And I'm gonna take a shot at this one, if you don't mind first, because it's a little bit different answer than this. I went to St. Paul's in 1972. I was a history teacher and a government teacher. Moved up, was middle school director, and then moved up to upper school division head. Time I moved up to upper school division head, we had 609 through 12. And early 2000s, I enrolled in 1,620 students. We were a growing school. Everything we touched just seemed to turn to gold. We had a good leadership team that was pretty tight and worked together. I was not the head of school. I was promoted to the position of principal. I was over the division heads, and we had a head of school. And I did that for 13 years. I never, had my 3 children had finished undergrad school. I had grandchildren back in the Mobile area. They were all working. My wife was happy. We got the house she finally wanted after all these years, and we could actually see daylight that someday we would pay off student loans. Sort of was my life. I was fully convinced that I would die someday walking down the halls of the building, and they'd find me the next morning because I worked night and day. And I had, it's just part of my culture, that love, Sandra talked about. They hired a new head of school. I worked for him 2 months. And I called my wife at work in July, and I said, I will not be back after this contract's over. And she had heard me, my concerns, and she said, what's he done? And I said, it's not about him. Obviously, the board wants the school to go in a different direction. Then I have known for as many years. And because of that, then the board is responsible for setting the direction, not the administration. We may have the vision, but philosophy and direction of the school is always set. And I said, I'm not coming back. She said, what do you want to do? And I said, I'm not going to find a job. And so I contacted Kerry Goodman at Southern Teachers, and about that same time, within a day, I got a call from a friend who knew nothing about what was going on, and said that JA was looking for a head of school to work with. What motivated me to become head of school was no motivation. It was a bad leader that I could not bad leader, a bad direction for where the school was going, that I could not live with the direction of the school after being here. So I wasn't ever motivated to become the head of school. I was perfectly happy and as a division director, every one of these. So the circumstances, I'd love to tell you something heroic, but it really wasn't. The head of school and I left the same day. Been there 34 years and we've been there a year. So, changed. That's how I got there.
I came from a business perspective. The job I had as an assistant head was heavily related to management and business. And I learned that when I went to work for a bank as an English major, and they made me take accounting and analyzing financial statements, which helped me out. But I went into the head's job without ever being a division head or any of that kind of thing. I went from being part of the business person to being the head. So it's similar to what you're talking about. I taught.
teacher, and I've always loved teaching. And, but I view my role now as a teacher of teachers. I still like to get in the classroom. I still like to spend that's the reason I teach in the summertime. To me, that's just my passion, and that's what I do. And I see that as my calling. So I don't know if that answers the question.
How many of you are first year kids? So you're into your fall of your first year. Any of you had a crisis yet? I'm going to throw you a crisis. I've been there a number of years at Eastwood Hall. I've had a wonderful board chair who was a great fundraiser. He was the first board chair I had that could really raise money. And he came in one day. We'd had a series of problems, unavoidable disaster kind of things. He came in and said, Bob, I got something bad I got to tell you. He said, I'm having an affair with the wife of a board member. I said, should I resign? And I said, let me get back to you. So I called a woman chair who was then in charge of the board development committee. That's what we did. After you were chair, you became that. And I called her. This is so southern. 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I said, Mary, we got this problem. What? I'll just get up and dress and go down there and see him. Now, what you have to understand is, that was her afternoon nap. So she walks in the door and says, how could you with 4 children? He said, Mary would have been better with 2. So we had to change board chairs in the middle of the year with a huge mess going on around town. And the first thing the new board chair said to me, he was kind of a sauterne style, kind of a brittle, sort of a quiet, great guy, very well educated. He said, Bob, do you know what the first job of a board chair is? I said, no, Jim, I don't. He said, it's to find his replacement. So, that's what you're going to get is a big surprise. Pretty soon, you have no idea where it's coming from. And it will drive you to your knees. And that's what you got to get ready for.
And you'll think that it's never happened to anybody else. It was the craziest thing in the world. You've never heard of it. You don't know how you're going to get any advice when you make 4 phone calls. Every single person you call will have dealt with the exact same thing, right?
Or can top it.
Or can top it. So there's hardly anything new. I mean, I've been 4 or 5 times and I thought, oh, this is the one thing that nobody's ever seen. Everybody I call. So when that happens, pick up the phone.
I mean, that's the thing I'm talking about, that goes on. That network that you have out there, you got to pick up, they'll guide you through these seas. But it's one of the things that I make them right in the summer is swimming in deep water, because you've jumped off the pier now and you're in really, really deep water. And you need some life preservers, and these people will give you that opportunity. Sometimes you need shark repellent, sometimes you need all kinds of stuff.
It also helps you give your board chair perspective.
Because if you picked up the phone,
they've definitely not ever seen it. And when you can say to them, look, I've talked to 5 of my colleagues, and they've all seen some version of this. Here's the way they went through it. That gives you board chair, especially if you're new in the role.
Right.
Gives you some instant credibility with the way you handle it.
So if you take nothing away from this today, that's the one nugget I would take away.
And then you have these great experiences that you just will remember the rest of your life. One of my favorites was this. I had to dismiss, for academic reasons, a young man his junior year. I'd worked with his mom and dad for several years. It wasn't that he was incapable, he just didn't do anything. He was frustrated with his mom and dad. They were a family of means, and so I got him to withdraw. And a couple of days later, I got a phone call and they said that this lady was downstairs to see me. I said, okay. And they said, did she come up? I said, sure. Who is she? I said, we don't know. She just came in and asked for you. So this sweet little lady, little tiny lady, I was probably somewhere in my 40s, and she was probably somewhere in her 70s, my contemporary now. She comes in, she's got a little purse in her hand, and she comes in very politely and says, explains that she's this young man's grandmother. And I said, yes, ma'am. And she said, I just need you to reconsider. It will mean so much to me in my elderly state to see him graduate from St. Paul's School. That's what we've always dreamed about. So she gives me this long story. I said, you know, I would love to help her, but I can't. She reaches down in her purse and she's doing something. She said, I'm writing a check out for $2,000, and I'm going to give you this check, and if you could see your way to let him come back in the class. This part is the kicker. And I said, no, ma'am, I can't do that. And she said, what if I make it out to Pat Taylor? True story. True story. I said, no, ma'am, that won't work. I have to tell you, I had 3 children, and my wife's a nurse, and I was an overpaid school teacher, and I really thought that would, goodness gracious, what $10,000 would have done. But it's one of my favorite stories. She was very polite. She put it back in the purse, and she wandered down the aisle. Robert. Anything else?
We have 5 minutes left.
5 minutes, okay.
So last quick question, sorry. It's a tough job, it's a great job. What's the thing that's most sustained you in your career? Things lifted you up even when it's been tough?
For me, it's been my faith. It's been the thing that's sustained me. And I believe this was God's calling on my life. And that's it for me.
I don't know that, but I think it's the success of kids. You know, where they've gone, what they've gotten, what they've done with it, it makes it all worthwhile.
Yeah, I definitely think. And to actually see some of those kids come back and put their kids in your school, even though they may be some of the whiners and complainers, but they thought enough of what they got to come back and do that. So yeah, I would echo that as well. And then the teachers that you go out and go to other schools and see them succeed as administrators or whatever in your schools. There's a lot of things, a lot of affirmation.
Go ahead.
We had a thing where we had board of visitors, and we invited people after the parents' days to come to a luncheon, like tablecloths and all that kind of thing. And I'm sitting in this room, and we had invited Miss Kitty Manning, who was about 85, about my age, maybe a little older, and sort of deaf. And she was sitting about 2 tables away from me. Room full of people, big donuts. She said, Bob, how long have you been here? And I said, 10 years, Miss Kitty. What? I said, 10 years, and then after about 4 times I'm screaming. Everybody's looking at me. She said, well, isn't that about long enough?
My answer to that sort of is a combination. It's just maybe different verbiage. But particularly as I have aged, I truly believe that if you're going to be a successful leader, I don't care about your experience ultimately. That's important. Degrees are important. Experience is important. Relationship is important. But if you don't wake up every morning realizing that this is a mission, you will not get out of bed. And As I've gotten older, I've had my days that I've wondered, should I get out of bed, knowing what the day faced. But I believe it's got to be a mission. I think it requires faith and looking for satisfaction in unusual places. The kid that nobody had hoped for, that you're fixing to shake hands with at graduation, the family that you've seen reconciled, and the D kid that we finally figured out that needed a few accommodations and he was brilliant. It's a mission. It's just a mission. And I do not believe that we can be successful if we don't believe it's a personal mission.
Thank you all.
Thank you.